New journal setup season is upon us, and with it comes the decision making of what we're going to include in our lineup. Whether you normally go with a one and done system, or like me, you have quite a stack, in today's video we're going to look at some of the notebooks and journals you might want to include in your lineup, starting first with a commonplace book. I feel like commonplace books have become really popular over the last couple of years, but effectively it's just a space to collect any kind of notes, thoughts, ideas, tidbits, quotes, lyrics, essentially anything you find interesting. On the left here you can see one example of how you would set something up like this. I have a column to indicate the type of media and then the notes just next to this. What could actually probably be more helpful than the type of media is what it actually relates to. So for instance, if you have some like big questions for life, things you're trying to tackle, find solutions for, just life areas in general, maybe set yourself up a little icon or a little code that you can put down the side of the page so that you can scan your eyes along this and find all of the entries that relate to that thing. This can be very good to set up in a nice small notebook like we've got here. This one's an A6, mainly because it makes it very transportable, very easy to take around with you on the go and jot things down as they come up in daily life. It's not only just when we're sitting like at our desks or at home or whatnot that these little pieces of inspiration strike. So having a notebook in your lineup that you can take around with you could be quite useful. Our next notebook idea is what I call an R&D notebook, or research and development. It's effectively just a place where you can put in collections that are inspiring to you, do trial runs of layouts, just test things out before you commit to having them in your everyday journal. I in particular like to use R&D notebooks to make ideas for the channel. Rather than filling up all of the space in my regular everyday journal, I put them in notebooks like this. That way I can still do a proper full setup of the layout ideas, but I don't end up going through a new journal every 2 months because I've been running out of space. One of the ways you might want to use it in particular though is really just doing trial runs of your layouts to see if you like the way they're going to look before you commit to having them in your actual journal. If I'm going with that kind of use, I typically choose to put it in a notebook that's a little bit more cost effective, a bit budget friendly, because I don't really mind so much if I get a little scribbly or a little messy in this notebook. It's just to do trial runs. If you did want to make your R&D notebook a bit more of a reference notebook though, so holding layouts and collections that you think you might want to reference later, then it is worthwhile putting it into a notebook that you know is going to stand up to the test of time. One that is a little bit better quality, you're going to be able to keep it for a while and not have it fall apart or look kind of manky. A journal type that I very much value having in my collection, to the extent that I'm actually going to be making another one, is a swatch book. This one is very much going to be for the people who have a decent pen or stationery collection and they just want to have a reference of what colors and types they have for all of the things. I primarily keep mine just for pens and inks, but you can also set them up for washi tapes, sticker examples, anything that you can swatch and then keep as a reference. My recommendation here is use a notebook that has the same type of paper that you're going to be using the materials on, mainly so that you can see how they behave in that notebook and you know how they're going to react when you try and use them in your actual journal. Another tip is having swatches by color like we have here. It can be very useful just to see all of your pens of the same color in one spot and find perfect color matches when you're trying to match them with a washi tape or sticker or any other materials you're using. When you're making a swatch book, it also could be useful to note down where you got the pens from, mainly so that you can refill and restock if you need to. A journal type that I'm very attached to at the moment, and one that I've previously called a brainstorming book, is one that I now call a scribble book, mainly because it really gives me permission to be quite messy in here. And it's effectively just what it sounds like. It's a space to scribble down thoughts, ideas, notes. I'm doing some math in here, making a schedule. We've got some brainstorming for different things that I need to do. Every so often I'll put video related stuff in here as well. So this one for instance was a video about finding theme ideas and then how to plan them out and pick your decorative items. But a lot of the time I'll just do my own personal general brainstorming in here because it gives me a place to, one, be messy and just get my thoughts out onto paper, which means I can then sort through them, check off that they're actually relevant, and then sort them into something that's a little bit more usable. A scribble book is great for any messy notes, thoughts, or sketches pictures you want to take down. And our next idea is also one that can be a little bit messy, but if you're on the hunt for a new notebook, then Typhosi is a great option. They are our sponsor for this video, and I have been really impressed with both the range of notebooks in their collection and also the quality of those notebooks. I appreciate that they really have something for everyone with a wide range of designs and cover options, and also paper types. If you like lined notebooks, they've got those. If, like me, you prefer bright white paper with a dot grid, then they've got plenty of those too. They have options with gilding, options without, journals with pen loops, journals without, and outside of their notebooks, they also offer a range of stationery, including washi tapes, stickers, stamps, and pens. My current favourite design from them is the Embrace the Light on navy. I love the contrast of the dark blue and the gold, I think it is super pretty. But they also have pastel cover options if you like things to be a little more subdued. Coming up soon, they'll be having their Black Friday event, which is running from November 15th to December 2nd, so a great opportunity to snag yourself a deal. And if you were ever shopping at Typhosi and you wanted a discount, you can use code JashiiCorrin10 for 10% off. We love savings. Thanks to Typhosi for sponsoring today's video, and as said, the next idea that you might want to add to your lineup can get a little bit messy, and that's why I like to have it in a separate notebook, and that's setting yourself up a goal planner. Typically when it comes to my goal setting, goal planning, I like to be messy with it. I find that if I'm trying to be too structured with things, if I'm trying to make things really neat and presentable, then I just don't get all of my thoughts out onto paper, and it doesn't make for a very good goal setting process. You can see I like to do mind maps, I like to do semi-messy lists. I still like the headings to look nice, but in terms of the actual content of the pages, I want it to be very freeform and just kind of go with the flow. This is actually the only notebook I have where I use my actual handwriting in here. Every other journal I keep, I do all caps to make it look kind of presentable, uniform. If you actually look at the individual letters in those notebooks, it's kind of a cheerleader effect because everything is the same size and the same kind of dimensions. It just makes it look more consistent and thus pleasing to the eye. This one on the other hand though, I wanted it to be something that I felt I could be messy in because oftentimes the planning process of a goal is, and that's why I use my regular handwriting. The reason that I keep this one separate to my everyday journal though is that I actually just want to have a record of all of my goals, all of the things that I've set for myself and the ways that I've been working on them in one space, rather than having to flip back through a whole bunch of other notebooks over the past however many years. I want this to be the kind of one-stop shop for anything goal related. This was a new addition to my 2024 lineup, and I'm going to be continuing with it into 2025. So far I've only used this much of the notebook and I've got about this much left, so I'm expecting it'll last me another probably at least 2, maybe even 3 years. In terms of the kind of things that you would put in a journal like this, I have things related to my goal setting and getting processes, reflection questions. I actually do my reflection processes for each quarter in here as well, because I use the information from this to set my goals for the period ahead. Our next idea is another one that I think works in a small notebook, so zooming in, and that's to set yourself up a little book of creativity. The creativity does not have to be sticker collage, it can be any kind of creativity you want to go for. It could be a space to do journaling, you could do doodling or painting. These ones are washi tapes, I did not draw this. Really just any type of creativity you want, but the benefit of keeping this in a small notebook is that it's really approachable, especially if you're just trying to slowly upskill in your creativity. Having something in a smaller size can just feel a lot more manageable than trying to make, I don't know, a huge full-blown art piece in something like a B5 notebook. One of the ways that we can actually help to boost our creativity is giving ourselves restrictions, and restricting in terms of space can be one way you do that. Otherwise it could be restricting in terms of materials, color palette, anything like that. A journal type that I have very much come to value in my lineup is a reading journal, but you don't actually have to have one that's just for reading. Mine is kind of more of a media journal than it is a reading journal. So yes, I do have books in here, but I also have games, I have documentaries and television shows, movies. Technically speaking, I could put music in here, I'm probably not going to. In a notebook like this though, you can do little reviews and little blurbs for the things that you're consuming. You can get involved in reading challenges and design layouts and print out materials that go along with those. You can also design your own challenges by making bingo boards and things like that. I found that my reading journal has become a really nice creative outlet for myself, which is why I really value having it in my lineup, but also it helps me better remember the different pieces of media I'm consuming. For movies in particular, I do have a tendency to forget what I've watched, but having them recorded in here, both in just kind of a list format and then in terms of those reviews really just helps me remember the stories that I've been consuming, how I found them, and the whole process just brings me a lot of joy. This can also be a fun opportunity to try a different style of setting up your journal. Oftentimes when we're doing our everyday journals, we kind of get into a routine of what works for us. We have our calendars, our weeklies, whatever else. But working in a journal like this allows us to be a little more flexible, trial new things, whether that be in terms of the structure of the layouts or the decoration. A notebook that I technically don't have in my lineup currently, but one that I am very tempted to add, is something like a memory keeping journal. Oftentimes we do have a small amount of memory keeping throughout the pages of our everyday journals, whether that be just little tidbits, thoughts and feelings. Technically speaking, just the recording of what we've been getting up to on a day-to-day basis can count for memory keeping, but it can be really nice to have some intentional spaces to journal our thoughts about experiences that we've had, put in pictures, doodles, any other kind of ephemera. As said, I don't technically have a personal memory keeping journal in my lineup, but what I do have is a memory keeping journal from my grandmother. She made one for each of her grandkids before she passed, and it's just nice to see what their life was like, the different pictures that they have throughout their lives together, and having that as a keepsake item. I would love to hear about any kind of memory keeping you do in your journal, whether you're thinking about adding that to your lineup, along with any of the other ones we've been talking about. But our next idea is similar in that it's also for memory keeping, but it's a little bit more low-key than doing a whole bunch of collaging and scrapbooking. This one is a 5-year journal, but it's special in the fact that I made it myself. I have previously tried to keep up with 5-year journals and found that I just literally could not. I'd get to like day 5 and then completely fall away with it. But I'm currently 1 year and 10 months into using this one without having any days missed. I know that part of the reason I've been able to keep up with this is because I made filling it in super simple. For each of the days, for each of 5 years, I just have 3 lines that I can fill in what has been happening, and then I have a little key that flips out to the side here that gives me the different symbols I can use for each of those entries. I don't have any kind of like preset prompts that I need to respond to, because oftentimes I find those prompt-filled journals, the thing doesn't necessarily relate every single year. Like yes, 1 year if you ask me the question, what are you reading right now, I might have a response, but maybe next year rolls around and I'm in a reading slump and I have nothing to say. By making it so that I can write about whatever I want to in any day for that 5-year period, and by only having 3 lines to fill in, it's made it a lot more approachable. One of my favorite things about this journal is being able to read what happened on that day the year before, and I'm very looking forward to having this completed at the end of my 5-year stint. Other things that you can put in here include kind of summary pages at the front of your journal. So for instance, this one is going to be for 2025 memories, we've got 2026 memories, and flipping over we have 2027. That's when my 5-year journal is going to be finished, but the majority of the journal is just filled up with those spaces to write each of my little daily entries. As said, I'm very impressed that I've been able to keep up with this one, and it is now a core part of my lineup. Which of the journals that we talked about in this video would you be most inclined to add to your lineup? And let me know if there are any others that you consider to be essential in your journal stack. But if you were on the hunt for more ideas for a blank notebook, then this video is the next one to check out. In that one we have over 100 different ways you could use a blank journal, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.